Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in once again to another episode of Ralston Speaks. We are going to jump right into this video this evening with some comments that I've heard recently. I'm sure you've all heard too. Comments that run along the lines of, why does everything have to be about race with you black people? And why are you all so sensitive? Or get over it, slavery's been done with. Or I never owned any slaves. Well, these comments and many more, I'm sure we've all heard, have got to be from the most... You basically have to be an ostrich or in denial, or it was just a smart question to try and incite anger for you to ask any black person this question. Put the shoe on the other foot, have us enslave you for 300 years. Then when you were forced to free us, and actually having quite a few of us fight for you on the side of the Confederacy. Then, after being promised 40 acres and a mule, you were actually given nothing but your walking papers. And the trek to anywhere you go, anywhere you choose to go, was wrought with danger. And when you, more than likely, you would have had to work for pennies on the very plantation in which you were enslaved. Let's progress. Let's be fair. A couple hundred years, and you had to sit in a different part of the restaurant and drink from a different drinking fountain and use a separate bathroom and sit on the back of the bus, who, by the way, was the transportation department, which was, by the way, funded by the African American citizenry because they were mainly the ones without the automobiles. It goes on and on. How would you feel if we adopted your music, Elvis Presley, and claimed it as your own? Or stole your inventions and took credit for them? We wouldn't have the light bulb today, the fire extinguisher, the elevator, the mailbox, without African American inventors. So, moving right along to why we are so angry is because this whole system has been designed for some reason. We all know the reason. Has been designed to keep us from advancing as fast as would be our potential without any hindrance. Now, I've said it before, and I'm more than happy to say it again. We know that we are totally capable of doing any job that exists on the planet. So, like I said in the last video, why is it that we get substantial wages? Because if we were to have equal wages, we would progress that much faster. Now, we all know that in recent weeks, despite the protests started by police brutality and murder, homicide, it's continuing. It's continuing. Basically, weekly, there has been a murder, and I would like to take this opportunity to point out a few facts to you. And we are going to start, hopefully, implementing change in the way our police force, basically the police force, and we will start there and go to the judicial system, is functioning, is built. So, did you know that it takes 840 hours? That's 21 weeks. 840 hours, 21 weeks to graduate. That's average time. Some are less, some are slightly more. To graduate from the police academy. So, 21 weeks, you'll have it in 840 hours. You have the power of life or death over another human being. 21 weeks, 840 hours. Now, let's take another fact. It takes 1,400 to 1,600 hours to get your cosmetology license. So, basically, we hold cosmetologists in higher, I would say, regard, or it is harder to get a cosmetology license than it is to get a badge. Well, onward, it takes 2 to 4 years to get your culinary license, to graduate from a culinary institute. 2 to 4 years. Now, oddly enough, it takes 6 to 12 months to become a correctional officer, to guard prisoners who are already incarcerated. Yet, 840 hours, 21 weeks to graduate from a police academy and pin on a badge. Now, even a Marine boot camp is 13 weeks. That's to earn the title. After that, you need to go to your specialized training, which can last from 28 days all the way up to a year. Now, do we see that seems very odd to me. I'm baffled, and I'm hoping that this low standard isn't because if it were any longer, the people that they would like to lord over, so to speak, would be weeded out if they had to attend 2 to 4 years of college, which is what I am recommending, because we know the average racist, redneck, and white supremacist can't read too well, and their attention span is quite slow. So 2 to 4 years would be a little difficult. So, but also, I propose that not only would the police academy be 2 to 4 years, graduating with a degree in criminal justice, but for 6 months of that training, we will demand that they have cultural and sociological training, so that in the event, why it is, however, that a Caucasian officer would be on post in a black neighborhood is a little odd. And so not only should these officers have sociological and cultural training, because let's say a police officer standing post in, let's say, a Japanese neighborhood, their culture is unique to any other culture. So there should be ways and methods in dealing with a person of that culture, so that you don't incite anger, you don't have intimidate, you don't display yourself as being intimidating, and most importantly, you do not give anyone the opportunity to have racial prejudice over someone that's not their race. So, what did we learn today? 840 hours to become a police officer, and 1,400 to 1,600 hours to become a cosmetologist. That is a disparaging difference. So I have an assignment for my brothers and sisters out there. I would like for you all to look up Frances Cress Welsing. That's Frances Cress, Cress Welsing. She's an African-American author who published a brilliant book on racism and systemic racism in the United States. A very insightful African-American woman, one whom we should all be proud of and support her in her work. So back to why we should be angry. I'm sure that we all can come up with at least a dozen incidents of police contact, and I'm sure if we came up with a dozen, 11 of them were unlawful. Remember back when there was stop and frisk? Stop and frisk, ladies and gentlemen, was a policy. At first, it was implemented in New York City, where it gave any police officer the right to stop and frisk any person of color, whether he be wearing a suit and having a briefcase in his hand on the way to board the subway, or jeans and a hoodie going in or out of a bodega. It did not matter if they felt that they had a reasonable doubt that this person was acting in suspicious behavior. They had the right to stop that person in his tracks and demand a stop and frisk. Why are we angry? How many times have we been followed in a store? How many times have we been pulled over and the first question that the police officer asked was, got any guns or drugs or knives or weapons in the car? How many times have we been pulled over just because we were African American? Now, I do believe some of these tactics are so that we might act in an angry, obviously, manner, therefore do something out of anger, and therefore justify the original illegal stop. So this is something that there's not one black man in this country, I'm almost positive, that does not have a story to tell. My first police contact was when I was 16. Do you know what it was for? Jaywalking. Jaywalking on the way to the mall with my friends, whom, however, were allowed to keep going because they were white and I wasn't, and I had no ID. I was 16. Jaywalking. So why are we angry? Well, if you have to ask that question, you need to wake up from your drunken stupor, because the world has been, for us, progressing very slowly, but the world has been evolving around you, and you have missed the bus. So I was given the task of researching and finding African American banks and credit unions. There are quite a few, and there is at least one in every state. On the East Coast are more prevalent, but on out west they become sparse. So I can't possibly read all of them on the video. However, if you Google essence.com, scroll to news and then bank black, essence.com, scroll to news and bank black, there's an extensive list. Now, of course, if you just Google African American owned banks, many other websites will generate, and it does just as well. It does just as well. I would just encourage that we do patronize our African American publishers, Essence, Jet, so on and so forth. Onward to our next topic. Now, we know that the police brutality is not going to stop anytime soon. We know that the difference in the rate of pay is not going to stop anytime soon. We know that throughout our history here, we have been considered substandard human beings. And this is what really baffles me, because I cannot understand What gives another race the right to look down on another when we all live on the same planet? It still baffles me. But as long as there are Malcolm X's, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s, Sojourner Truths, Harriet Tubman's, Calvin Brown's, we will overcome. But these people that I mentioned before, they can't do it alone. They need our help. Join us. Help raise the cry of outrage. Help support the cause in your individual neighborhoods, your states, your towns. We can't do it alone, ladies and gentlemen. Let our voices be heard. They have our attention already. We have their attention. Now is the time not to rest on, not to let the dust settle, so to speak. Let's keep up the protests, keep up the lobbying, marching on city halls, because we've all heard the term, the straw that broke the camel's back. We are not camels, yet we have been beasts of burden in this country for over 400 years. Our straw has come and gone many times before, yet we raised no voice and we did not outcry, because some of us were actually living the American dream. And those of us that weren't, we sometimes become comfortable in our discomfort. Now that we are all unified in our outrage, let us become unified in our protest. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ralston. Thank you for listening.